Hey, do you have leaky forks? Now, that's not a medical question, but if you have leaky fork seals on your bike, that could cause some big issues down the road, like this bike. So let's get that fixed. Welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. So today we're going to be fixing this leaky fork seal issue on this Dyna Evo motor. And if this bike looks familiar, it is, because it was my dad's. He sold it to my son-in-law. My dad's healing from his wreck and he's going to go to a trike. So good upgrade will be for him. So he didn't need this Dyna anymore, and my son-in-law was looking for a bike, picked it up. Now, my dad's still planning to get the chopper going again, the Honda CB750 chopper. You know, he's from the generation when your horse bucks you off, you don't let it get the best of you, you get back on the horse. So he's going to ride it once again. You'll see him going down the road on it one day soon. So if you don't know anything about forks, Harley forks are filled with fluid, and they're kept in there by drain plug on the bottom and seal on the top. What can happen over time is dust and debris can get down in the seal, or the seal can just get hard and old after the years and they will start leaking. Now what happens is, if you have one leak, usually both don't leak at the same time, unless you might hit a big pothole or something and then boom, both of them blow out. But usually you'll just have one leak, and then what that'll cause is it'll cause your front wheel to wear really weird. You'll actually start seeing your tire on the tread peel up on the corners. So if you got a tire that's peeling up on the corners, that's a good indication one of your seals are blown. Another thing you'll notice is a vibration in the front. It'll almost feel like it's hopping sometimes. If you go over a pothole, it'll go down and up really bad, maybe on one side. So easy to tell if your seal's blown or not, and let me show you that. So this is a really good indicator that you have a blown seal. You can see the fluid here and the trash just from the seal sliding up and down, fluid coming out. You can see down here on the cover boot that it is indeed wet. The other side is dry, but if you look close, there's a little bit of film on it, and that's probably close to going out as well. This is the tread I was talking about. Now, we put a new tire on this not long ago. Still got some knobbies on the side, so we caught this in time. But what will start happening is you'll have your tread here start kind of looping up where it's riding weird on both sides. It won't be in the middle, it'll be on the sides. That's usually an indicator of unbalanced forks, or your fork seals have blown on one side. Now, we don't really have to worry about, on this style of wide glide Dyna front end, of the forks being up too high, because the way these are designed is that your forks come all the way up, then you have this bolt in top that drives it up tight. So that you don't have to worry about getting these not set properly where one's up higher than the other, which would cause the same issue in the front and actually cause the bike to kind of lead on you. So we're going to be rebuilding these forks today. Jump right in and get to it. All right, the first thing we'll do is get these aftermarket turn or I don't know, there's signals up here and then there's signals down here. So I don't know how this works. I don't know what these do. Okay, they're kind of like running lights, day running lights, I guess. Passing lights. They're set a little high, actually. They don't kind of match the headlight. So we'll just kind of let those dilly-dangle down there. Get this other side off. Because these are attached to the tubes, we're just going to go ahead and take them all the way off instead of just sliding them out the top. One less thing that's going to be in our way. On these Dynas, you have, and the Sporties as well, you have a couple of different size forks. You have a 39, which is a smaller one, and then a 41 millimeter, which is the bigger one. both millimeters. And this is a wide glide. It's got the bigger diameter tubes on it. Now you're usually not going to be able to get a socket and extension and ratchet and all that on there, although I think you might be able to with these extended risers. But I usually just grab a cross aunt, a big one, and I'll put it on there. So on some models that this goes through the top tube here or top triple tree here, you'll want to leave this in, just loosen it. But on this one, this has to come out anyway to get the tube to drop down. So we can just go ahead and take this out. But you might have a model that this whole thing here goes down through there. There'll be a little O-ring there that needs to be replaced. And then we'll go to the other side and do that. When you're doing these, you want to be careful of anything like your tank or your headlight bucket. You don't want to hit it with your wrench or socket or ratchet, whatever you're using. There'll be a big washer underneath. That's right, washer underneath this bolt as well, and then another old crusty O-ring gasket kind of thing there. Now this bike has this, kind of fancy crossover doohickey. So we're going to take this whole thing off. And all this is just cosmetic. That's all it is, just kind of a dressing kit. I mean, I guess it may help keep your forks a little more stable, I guess. I'm not sure. Keep your fender from flexing, but what you're going to find is when we take these off, it's probably going to be rubbed on the fender and mess the paint up. Sometimes all the additions you can put on your bike, they're nice and fancy, but sometimes they cause more trouble than they're really worth. These have these little boot covers on here. I guess they do kind of help keep trash out of your seals, but little seal retainer from rusting, but they're definitely not going to help with a busted seal. There we go, and this should be able to come up and off. I shouldn't have to, there we go. Ooh, it smells like cow manure. Yep, definitely cow manure. I think it looks a lot better without all that on there, personally. And I believe these fender bolts are a 1/4 inch Allen and then 1/2 inch nuts, and they are. We have a lot of Amish that live on our road. Mennonites, Amish, I'm not sure who they are or what the difference in the two are, but they have carts and buggies, and if you're not careful, you can get splattered going down the road, and that's what smells like happening. And your fender could take off on you, so make sure you hold it so that it doesn't. There we go. We will be taking the wheel off, so what I want to do now is get the brake caliper off and go ahead and loosen the axle on the wheel while it's still locked into the triple trees, the forks are, and that'll help with getting these out. Okay, so I loosened up these pinch bolts which hold up these turn signals. Usually there's a pinch bolt here as well that kind of keeps this fork from, I guess, twisting, and they've taken that out so that they can drop the turn signals down here. Now the forks are really ready to slide out of the triple trees. I still have the wheel on, though I've loosened up the axle. The reason I've not taken the wheel off yet is because sometimes these tubes, they just get water in here and they get kind of rusted to the triple tree. So I like to use kind of the force of the wheel. Now with the wheel locked in, as I raise the bike up, with everything loose, it should kind of break those free. So it did drop down a little, but not as much as I'd like for it to be kind of free. So what I'll do is I'll take my bolt and I'll run it back in there about halfway threaded down. I'll take a rubber mallet and then I will beat on both of these forks to try to get them to kind of, release on us and slide down. All right, that one came out. That one came down, and as you can see, all that rust and grime there, that's what's holding these kind of on. Now I'm going to go ahead that I got those broke free, and I'm going to take my axle and wheel off. Just kind of get them out of the way. It's also a good time to check on your wheel bearings. They feel pretty good. Also a good time, now that you got the wheel off and you're going to take the forks off, kind of check your neck bearings, pulling up and down, side to side. See how the fall away is on them. Everything in the bearings feels really, really good. On this side, it feels like it's ready to just come on out. So I'll take this bolt out and I'll just wiggle. Oh yeah. Now I don't want it to come all the way out yet. Let's see if I can, oh, this side in here is in tight. This side was stuck in a whole lot more than that other side was. It's still stuck pretty good. Let me loosen this bolt up a little bit. No, it's pretty loose. Let me just go ahead and take this all the way out. No, it's pretty loose. Now, when it still won't come out and you run out of thread for your bolt, you can get a socket that'll fit down in the hole for your triple tree, but will not damage the threads on the top of this bolt of your tubes. Let's try an 11/16. All right, that fits down in there good. Now we can just kind of keep tapping. Now what I want to do is bring it about halfway down. I want to lock this triple tree back in. And the reason I want to lock it back in is so this tube doesn't turn, so that I can loosen or just break this off. Now I'm not going to take it all the way out. I'm just going to break it free, and the whole tube is turning. Somebody put that on way too tight. Now let's just go ahead and get it out now. There we go. Now we'll take this over to the lift or to the vise, wrap some towels around it, vise it real good so we can then break this right here off, break it free. The other one came off really easy. Now on these Dynas, you don't have to worry about mixing the forks up because one side has a brake caliper, the other side doesn't. Easy to just screw off there. Now this is under pressure, so don't take these all the way off yet. So you're going to have a drain bolt here, but that also locks in this piston. So it's a good idea while the spring's under tension to go ahead and try to break this right here off. And I probably should have done it while they were up here locked in the triple trees, but I didn't. Since we got to clamp the other one down anyway, it's not a big deal. Okay, finally. Whew, finally got this right here broke free. I had to vise it and it was still spinning. So I took the cloth out that I wrapped this in. I put an inner tube, an old busted inner tube around it. That helped grip it a little bit better. And then I had to put another rag around and do vice grips down on my workbench where this would not spin. Then I had to put my big crescent wrench on. Then I had to take a sledge and use it like an impact. Finally broke free. I don't know who put that on. Way too tight. Now with these are the bolts here that go in the bottom that hold the fluid in. On this side, it's not a big issue because you can get right to the bolt head. On this side, however, this is encased. And there's a hole down here that you have to run something long through. So I have a long extended 6mm is what these are. Don't use an impact on these. I was able to break them free and get them out. Now when you get them out, you'll find there are little crush washers on here. Brass, copper, whatever they are. I believe these are copper. And make sure you get a kit that comes with new ones. Don't reuse those, or you could have a leak. Now, if you're taking this off, it should just pop and then spin out. If you use an impact, it could cause this piston in here, even though it's under pressure, to spin. If it spins and will not let that bolt out, then you have to disassemble the fork. And I take a broom handle and run down in here, because at the top of this piston, as you'll see here in a minute, there's a socket cut out. And I jam that down in there, hammer it down in there, and then I hold the broom handle, and that gives me enough hold on the piston to usually break these free. Now you can put a reversed in socket down in there, but I don't have one of those, and my broom handle works pretty good. So I didn't get to show you that because I didn't need it. Take these old boots off here, set these aside, and now we'll start disassembling this fork. So what we want to do now is we want to take this nut on the rest of the way out. It is spring loaded. Now you can drain the fluid out of this. It's kind of went all over my shop floor. You can take it outside and drain it. You can get most of it out, but you're not going to get all of it out. So it is going to make a mess, so just be prepared for that. But as we take this and unscrew this off, what you're going to find is this is under loaded pressure of a spring. Now, not like a coil on a car where it's going to shoot halfway across the county, but you do want to have your hand on it to keep a little pressure on it as that springs up. Also be aware, when you set this down on the ground to do that, don't mess up your threaded holes here. So set you a rag down, a cardboard box, something down so you don't booger up these threads down here. Okay, so what I've got down here, just got it sitting in a cardboard box here. This is already broken free, thank goodness. Now you can be able to just hold it and turn it. Now when you get close to it coming off, you want to start just turning the tube and holding down on the spring. Keeping pressure, push down, and it'll come off just like that. So this sets right on the spring. And set that aside. There will be an O-ring here that you will replace. It should come in your kit. Our spring, one of this. Now some springs will be tapered, meaning there'll be a tighter compression here and a bigger compression up here, bigger spacing. So you want to make note of that. This one seems to be about the same, but I will orient it for how it went in. All right, now we're ready to get our seal out. And there's a retainer ring in there that we need to get out. So I'll just grab a flathead here, and it's got little grooves on it that'll let you get down in there and just pop that ring up. Sometimes these rings will get really rusty if you pressure wash your bike a lot and wash it. And these had the boots on it, so these are nice and clean and not corrosive. But I like to get a kit that has these, so a complete kit. Now with that retainer clip out, we can just take our tube and use it like a reverse sledge and pop that seal up and out. There we go. Now it's coming out. Whew, that was in need of replacement. All right, so now that the seal is out, you can pull this whole thing out. And so what you'll have is the seal here. That'll come out the top. You'll also have this washer here that goes under the seal. And you'll also have this ring here that goes under that. And then this here is a tube. Now inside the tube, you'll have some components that will come out here. And this here is your piston. It'll have a little spring underneath it. So what we'll want to do is clean everything up, inspect these little rings here. I didn't buy a complete kit. It just comes with the seals, the new snap ring, the new O-rings, a new washer, things like that. But inspect these. Of course, if anything's broken or chipped, you'll want to replace that. But usually, these are in pretty good shape. This brass collar as well can come off. So just inspect it. If it's boogered up, tore up, just replace that as well. You just put a flathead in there, open it up, pop it off, put a new one on. But everything in here looks good, just needs to be cleaned up. And of course, we'll clean this shaft up real nice and smooth as well. Now this is your lower assembly. And in here you'll find a little piece like this. Now we want to clean all this up real good, especially around where the seal sets and the snap ring goes. Sometimes there can be trash in there. But this part right here is what your piston goes into, and then your bolt goes through there. So this piston will go in the tube first, come out the bottom, and then this goes in your lower assembly, and it's usually easiest to put it on and then put your lower assembly in. But I'll show you all that when we get going. So everything's broken down now. We can start cleaning everything up and then assembling things with our new parts. Okay, so I got everything cleaned up. Here's our new kit here. And on this piston, if you're taking this bolt out in the bottom, when you're disassembling your fork that goes in here, this piston might turn if you're trying to untighten this and take this off if it's been put on too tight. And this is where I'm talking about, you take a broom handle and kind of, you might have to shave the end down a little bit and then hammer it down in here, and that'll grip this enough to spin this out. Some models have like reverse socket that'll go in there, but this doesn't. So the broom handle trick works pretty good if you ever run into that. But if you don't use an impact, it usually won't spin on you. It'll grip and snap off. Well, not snap off, but break off. Well, not break off. Well, you know what I mean. Come undone. So we got everything cleaned up. Now we're ready to start assembling back. First thing is our tube. It's nice and clean now. We will drop our piston down in, and we want it to rattle and shake it. We want that piston to come out the bottom here. There, just like that. Then we'll take this and just go ahead and snap on there, and then we'll pull this up kind of into there, just like that. All right, and be careful because it'll fall out. Now we'll take our collar, slide back on there. It doesn't matter which way it goes. Okay, then we'll take our new washer. There is a smooth side and a flat side on some. So this has like a more flat side, this has a more smooth side. So I like to put the smooth side down and the flat side up, because that is where our new seal is going to set against that flattest side. Now I'll just take my finger in a little bit of fluid. I want to go around the outside, and I want to go around just a little bit, just a thin film on the inside. Now, what fluid do you use? You can go buy fork oil. There's different weights. That's what I use right there. Premium ATF transmission fluid. That's what I've always used. That's what old school guys usually use. Never had an issue with it. Works just great. So be your own judge of that. Now we'll just go ahead and very carefully, just put that seal on. Now what I did is took a green 3M pad, some PB Blast, WD-40, and I scrubbed with my hands up and down. Now you'll still see some marring, but you shouldn't feel anything, because these seals or these tubes will slide up and down against that seal, and you don't want it at burr in here nicking that seal and then causing a leak right after you did it. So let me get this piston back out, because again that has fallen out. Stick that back up in there just like that, and then we can go ahead and start sliding this down. And you want to look in there and make sure that that little piece stayed in there. So I'll put that on there like that. I'll take my bolt. I'll take a new washer that's supplied in it. And I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of try to get it started. That's all. I'm just going to go ahead and try to get that started. And sometimes it'll actually grab and you can just go ahead and tighten it. Now I do not put any Loctite on that. So let's see if this will tighten on us. Yep. It doesn't take much, okay? Don't over tighten it. So now we're ready to go ahead and drive our new seal in. So what I do is I kind of get it started, and then I got a special tool that I'll use to put in here, and I'll show you what it's like and where to buy it. So here is my special tool. It is an exhaust pipe. It has a narrower end up here and a fatter end down here, so it can do different types of seals depending on your size. Now the edges of these pipes, if that's what you're going to use, are sharp. So I will take some tape and I will just kind of tape it around where it's kind of sticking over like that, and then I'll just take that tape and fold it down like that. Then I don't have to worry about damaging our new seal. I'll slide the big end over the pipe, and then that right there is what I'll use to run that seal down. So once the seal is down, you'll be able to see the little snap ring that goes, that the little indentation that the snap ring snaps in. So you want to get it down to where you can see where that snaps in. We'll take our new snap ring and go over that and just snap that down into place. All right, perfect. So that snap ring's down in there. The seal doesn't have to go down in there that big. You'll see that the snap ring sets up kind of high. And now our tube's assembled. All right, now that we have the tube assembled, we can go ahead and put our fluid in before we drop the spring in. So I just went in the house and got my wife's mixing cup. It'll be fine. She doesn't have to know, and brownies might taste weird, you know, for a couple of weeks, but then everything should be fine. Now, as far as fluid, there's a dry fluid and a wet fluid level. So a wet fluid is if you were just to take that top bolt out with the fork still on the bike, drain it through the drain plug, which these forks have right down here with this drain plug. So you would drain that fluid out, and then you would put on these forks 10.2 ounces. Now if you disassemble the forks like we did and dry everything off and clean everything off, then this fork tube is dry. So in that case, we're going to put 11.2 ounces in. So this cup here has 8 ounce measurement at a time. So we're going to drop 8 ounces of the premium ATF fluid in. And then before I load it up again with the rest, I'm going to just pump up and down. You'll hear it gurgling. And what you're doing is you're getting all that air out of that piston. All right. So we'll load it up again. We're going for 11.2, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11, just a hair over 11. We'll go ahead and drop the rest in. Now again, if you had the forks on the bike and you were just changing the fluid and your seals were fine, you'd take that drain plug out, let the fluid come out, take your top bolt out so it'd flow out a little better, then you'd add 10.2 on these type of forks. All right, I don't hear any more gurgling, so all the air is out of the piston. Now I'll take my spring after we've cleaned it off and just drop it in slowly down to there. Now this is going to come up, and you're going to see that it doesn't come up all the way enough to cover the spring. That's where the tension comes in. So we'll take our cap, we cleaned it off, and it's important to clean these threads and clean the threads off in here. And then we put the new O-ring on. I've already oiled it up. And then we've got to compress this spring down enough to where it grabs on the threads, and then we can thread it on in. We don't have to tighten it all the way. We can do that on the bike, but we do have to compress this down to get into that. There are fancy tools you can do to do that, different contraptions, but I just take my croissant wrench I stick it on there and I use my hand to push the spring down. And then when I get it down in there, I'll actually twist my tube, and the pressure is really just getting that O-ring down on there. Usually they screw in pretty easy. And just like that, it's in. Now we can just take this, and like I said, we'll tighten it on the bike so that it's good and tight. Not like the other one was tightened, but we do want to snug it up a little bit. Now, I'll go ahead and slide this up in the fork. We'll go ahead and take our boot, clean it off a little bit. This little dust cover does help, so I'll put it back on, snap it down. And now our fork is assembled. And now it's a lot, oh yeah, a lot sturdier. It's going to be smoother. You want to check, make sure there's no leaks down here. We're good and dry. This fork is done. Now don't turn it upside down. You'll lose fluid out of here. If you need to run your bolt back in, if you're going to set this around somewhere, I would do that. But I want to go ahead and just put this on the bike. And then I'm going to do the other fork exactly the same. There's no difference. And so I'll do that, and then we'll throw this back together and take it for a ride. All right, we got our first fork on. Now we're ready to do our second fork. This was the trouble fork right here on the left side. Now, words of advice, where these get rusted up over time, these as well, put you some WD-40, PB Blast, whatever you want to use. Get a little wire brush, or you can even do a Dremel with a brush on it, little brass brush on it. But get up in here, I'll just find this wire brush that my dogs chewed the handle off on. Handy, and just go around here. I've already done this, but you'll spend some time just going around, getting all that old, crusty, dusty stuff off. Up in here is really slick. Usually don't find rust up in there because it just kind of holds this. Now, I had such a time getting this off that you might have to take you a file and just kind of file down these corners right here where your tool might have burred them up. So if you're finding this won't go in and won't fit up in there, that's going to be your culprit. Also, I forgot to mention, if you're going to clamp this to get this off, it's really stuck on like mine was, you want to clamp up here. You don't want to clamp down here where your tube rides on that seal. Because if you do mar it up, it's going to leak from wherever that is. So I took a brass wheel on an angle grinder and I just kind of cleaned this up best I could. And now we're ready for this to go up in there. It's still a little bit of a tight fit, so I'm just going to take a rubber mallet and pound on the bottom. And that'll be enough now. Then I can go ahead and put my new O-ring with my bolt, and I can draw this fork up in the rest of the way. Now I've got the pinch bolt loose, so what I might have to do is kind of hold this here and then just go ahead and so what that's going to do is it's going to draw it all the way up to the bottom of this right here. That's what we want. But that's in, it's not all the way down. I'm going to loosen both pinch bolts up. I'm going to put the wheel on. I'm going to let the bike down, let the pressure on these wheels and on these tubes, and that'll draw up the rest. Then I can tighten from here and pinch those back down. Okay, so we got everything back together. I loosened up these pinch bolts when I got the wheel on, and it set down. Didn't go all the way, so I took a rubber mallet, just kind of tapped on the triple tree around both sides, and poof, it set down. Then I tightened these up real good, and as you can see, they're nice and flush. Pinch bolts are in. These, I can't remember. I think these were down here before we started. Maybe not, but anyway, they don't need to be on this tube. They need to be whatever you add to your front, add it up between here, because this does not move. These forks go up and down. I mean, you could bottom out and it hits something. I don't know. Maybe not, but I just don't like anything down here. I put them up here, and then I angled them where they weren't shining up at the aliens in the sky, and now it looks a whole lot better. I think I'm going to leave that brace thing off. It had a piece of rubber under it, but there is a nick here, right where that thing goes across. And so it was not really a nick, but a rub spot. So I'm just going to leave that off, and I think it looks a whole lot better like that. Now he does have some chrome covers that go on here that I took off before I put this on the lift to see, you know, what was leaking before we started the work. But everything's back together. Oh, I got to put the brake caliper on. Dang, forgot that. So I got to put the brake caliper on. I'm going to do filter, oil change, primary change, transmission change, new plugs. So a good little tune up on it while it's on the lift, and he should be ready to rock and roll. All right, so we call that a success. That's how you rebuild forks on a 97 Dyna. Your bike might be different, so make sure you look up the service manual and see what all and what not you got to do and don't do. And do me a favor, let me know in the comments, what are you working on? What you got going on this weekend or the week? What projects have you got? I like to hear about that. One more thing, tell your mama now I said hi. Oh, almost forgot. I got to put my wife's measuring cup up before she spies that it's gone. There we go. Good as new. If she finds out, I'll just sing her my favorite song. It always seems to get me forgiven. Baby, lock them doors and turn them lights down low. Put some music on us soft and slow.